Yeah, Shlomo, if you can just put it on mute, that would be helpful. I put it on mute. Why not do that? Did it? Okay. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Brachas Pei Gimel Halacha Dalid, and we're going to, God willing, start Halacha Hey. In the Ois V'Hadar's edition, we are going to be learning Daf Lamed Tes. We left off on Daf Lamed Ches Amid Beis, 18 lines before the bottom of the Amid. By the two dots, we are dedicating this class for the success of our Jewish soldiers and for the Hatzlacha of getting back all of the kidnapped Yidden. May that happen today. Amen. So let's begin like this. First of all, as we are learning in this whole sugya of Halacha Dalit, the sugya of that Ezra made a takana that Abalkeri is not allowed to say Shema, not allowed to say Shemona Esri, not allowed to say God's holy's name. And the Mishnah therefore told us that there is a distinction between vocalizing and between being mahared, between reviewing it in one's mind, whichever way you learn the Pshat, the Machlokes, and the Mishnah, right? Not Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, but the Tanakama, there is such a distinction. So the Gemara in the beginning today will begin teaching us regarding the same type of distinction that is to be made, whether a person is allowed to review Torah in a Beis HaKisei, and as we'll see, vocalizing it, no, and we'll see L'shita Yerushalmi, whether you can be mahared, whether you can review Torah in your mind when you are sitting in a latrine. Now, the Gemara is going to go from there quickly back to the Sol Sugya of Ezra. The Gemara is going to tell us how Ezra's enactment, right, again, which is going to the mikvah before saying sacred words, prevented wrongful cohabitation. The Gemara is going to give us more reasons why Ezra made his takana, and as we pointed out in the last year, l'chu'ura, from the words of the Yerushalmi, which are different than the words of the Bavli, to begin with. We'll review it when we learn it. To begin with, the Yerushalmi has another reason for it, and we're going to learn additional reasons. We're going to learn the exceptions that the Chachamim gave, even while there was such an enactment, which would allow a person to learn Torah. We left off actually in Daf Lamed Ches Amid Beis, learning such stories of Rabbi Chanina, how Rabbi Chanina was bothered when he saw people, instead of being in the shir early, before dawn, they were by the mikvah, waiting for the mikvahs to open. He told them to come back and learn. We quickly learned the Pnei Moshe. We're going to repeat it today. We learned the Charedim. The Charedim holds that even when there was a Takanas Ezra, according to Rabbi Chanina, and as we'll see today, other opinions, learning Mishnayos was permitted. Reviewing that which you know was permitted. The Isra was only to learn new, or to learn Agada, to learn Primiyas HaTorah, but to learn the simple Mishnayos, that was something that was mutter. And ultimately, the Gemara is going to tell us over here various opinions, whether B'chlal it was nullified or not. And as we will see and speak out, that Yerushalmi, it wasn't so simple that this was nullified. It was only one das. Unlike in the Bavli, where in the Bavli we go with the Shita that Batlu Tfilas Ezra, and that's why Ad Hayerim Hazeh, many communities, particularly in Hasidic communities, we at least attempt to follow this Takanas as we're going to move on Daf Lamed Tes Amid Beis to the next Mishnah, to what we are calling Halacha Hey. And over there, we're going to discuss what should we do if Abalkeri realizes in the middle of his Shema, in the middle of his Shemona Esrei, I'm Abalkeri. What should he do? And as we learned it in the Mishnah, we will also learn about saying Shema in the close proximity to tsoya, to excrement, or to meiraglayim, and certain leniencies that were given on that topic. Shaloyli Yizbayish, Kavod Abriyas, it's going to be a Gavaldik Daf. Without any further ado, again, we're on Daf Lamed Ches Amid Beis by the two dots. I know it's like a middle of the Amid. We started a few minutes earlier, and God willing, we're going to go for it. Okay? So first of all, Ma'u Lahara Bebeis HaKisei. Do we apply the same distinction that we had in the Mishnah? Tanakama, L'Bavli, Oili Yerushalmi, whether it's the Shema, whether it's the Birchai Shema, we do make such a distinction. Something which may not be vocalized may be thought in one's mind. What would we say over here? And the Gemara says it's a Machlokes HaMeroyim. It's amazing. Chizkiah says mutar. Person is allowed to be Mahara Divrei Torah in the Beis HaKisei. Rabbi Yas is the one that says us. And now the Gemara is actually going to back up Shitas Chizkiya, the lenient opinion. Rabbi Zeiro, Kol Svar Koshali Dahavali. Anytime I had a difficulty and I needed to really think things through, and I was able to understand that which I couldn't initially, you know where that happened? Tamon Sevirte. I did it over there. Omar Abelazar ben Shimon, Kol Hahus Farakasha, the Tful Yoim. There is a Braisa, the Braisa of Tful Yoim, and it's very difficult. You know where I managed to understand it? Tamon Sevirte, over there in the Beis HaKisei. Now, actually, the Rashi Dilio, again, we're trying to do what we could. I know it's taking a bit more time pointing out another big difference between the Bavli and the Yerushalmi. And he quotes from a Masechta Zavachim Daf Kuf Beis. I'm reading the Rashi Dilio, and he says that over there, not only did Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon, as we have in the Yerushalmi, say, Shmuli, that he thought Torah and he understood something that was very difficult in the bathroom. Omar Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon, bebeis hakisei. Wow. There was a certain teaching that he said over there. Now, indeed, says that Ashir El Yovahacha Mashma, the Maisele Siyata Lamad Omar the Mutalahara bebeis hakisei. Over there, now, no one holds you're allowed to speak to B'nai. So over there, that whole story is actually asked, how was he allowed to speak? And the Gemara answers that lo oin soy. It was ba'oinus. Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon was a yid that was learning so much Torah he couldn't stop. But it's very different. What's over there, the Gemara is pointing out, it was an oinus. It's not okay. Here, we're not saying Omar. Here, the story that we had in the Yerushalmi, he never spoke. He grew a beard. He only thought. And it wasn't lo'oinus, it was mutter. That the Yerushalmi not only brought a machlekes amiroyim, but then it brings two stories. That's the way you say that the Yerushalmi is actually paskening that muter lahara b'divrei b'beis hakisei. Okay, now going back to the sugya of Abal Keri, Rav Acha b'shem Rav Tanchum b'Rebbi Chia relates to us that the Yoim by Rabbi Shua ben Levi during the lifetime of Rabbi Shua ben Levi, during the days of Rabbi Shua ben Levi, bikshu la'akeres atfilah hazois. They wanted to uproot tfilas Ezra. Why did they want to do it? Mipnei nishei hagolel, because the women of the north of Israel, shahayu nekhareis mipnei atzina, they became barren because of the cold. What does it mean that they became barren? So says the Charedim, very simple. Tfilas Ezra, don't think it only goes for a man. The takana is that if Zera leaves the body of a human being, they have to go to the mikvah. That means that if a man and a woman had an act of cohabitation, and now there is Zera in the woman's body, so it says the Charedim actually two details. He says, look inside the Charedim, in the end of the Yomad, Shegam hanoshim chayovas b'tfila, number one, achar tashmish, regardless. And number two, v'gam im poiletas, achar. In other words, women also have to go to the mikvah. Tefillah says, what happened was, according to the Charedim, because of it being free, they didn't have mikvahs the way they had it today. You're speaking about the Galil, the north of Israel. God willing, we're going to be there next week. It's freezing. So they went to the mikvah, and the cold of the mikvah made them barren, Rahman al-Islam. Can you imagine? Why did they go to the mikvah? Because they wanted to daven. They wanted to say the Shema. And they became barren. So they decided they got to uproot it. That's the Charedim. The Pnei Moshe, 13 lines before the bottom of the it says, no, that the word nekares doesn't mean barren. It means agunois. It means that since it was so cold, the men thought to themselves, how can I have a relation with my wife? It's too cold to mikvah. They never had relations with the wife for the whole winter, so the women felt that they became agunois. Even after Tashmish and every time there's 72 hours, that means that every time she davened for the next 72 hours, prior she wanted to make the yog. Oh. So 1 second. So they wanted, that was a good reason why they should nullify it. Now again, in the Babli, we're going to quote Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseiro. We're going to get to it. Barren means that the Charedim says they push it, it injured their bodies. When you put your body in the mikvah too much, too cold, they lost their ability of having kids. God, Rahman al-Asam. Amar Rabbi Elishua ben Levi, no, we're not going to nullify it. Why? Davar shehu goyder es Yisrael mino aveira. That which is preventing Eden, that is which protecting the Jews from these types of sins. We're going to uproot it. We'll never uproot it. So 1 second, how does this takana prevent Jews from sinning? So the Gemara gives right there two stories, filled with stories, Yerushalmi. Story number one, this is fascinating. So you had, I like David's new glasses. So you have a watchman of vineyards. That means a yid that was working in an isolated place, And he fell. What shot he fell? She started to pursue Rahman al-Islam, a married woman. And he finally prevailed upon her. And now they agreed to sin. And if you can word this any way you want to word it. We're Hasidim, we're going to word everything in the positive. At least the silver lining is that in this area where they had a Yetzer Hara, the worst of the worst, the evil of having a relation with a married woman, like Shlomo HaMelech says, that you're baharas a whole family. You make a churban l'doiris, like the biggest evil in the world. That they fell in, but they're going to go to the mikveh afterwards because there was no Yetzer Hara against it. I don't want to say the cynical Hasidic, but not from. I don't want to say there because it's a terrible thing over there. So what happened is that they were looking for a mikveh, that they wouldn't have a relation together. The mikveh they have to find. By the time they found the mikveh, so many people were there they couldn't sin anymore. And then from the exposure, people saw them together. So batlu aveda. Story number two. Story number two was now this already the sin. I'm not saying the sin is not a sin, it's a sin. But they're not a married woman. She was a shifcha, she was an evet, the shifcha knanis belonging to the household of Rabbi. Okay. A man again pursued her. And so when she was going to give it, she told, listen, I'll have a relation with you, but listen here. She only had an opportunity to go to the mikvah, this shifcha, when she went with her mistress. Whether the mistress was the wife of Rabbi, one of the daughters of Rabbi. So she says, let me find out if the woman who I'm serving is going, because when she goes to the mikvah, I can also chaparayim. I can't go by myself. And the same thing, if I can't go to the mikvah, how can I say Shema? How can I say Shemona Esrei? I'm not going to have a relation if I can't daven afterwards. So he, in his pursuit, the animal that he was, what did he tell her? He told her, Loikebe means, what he didn't mean it in a derogatory way. He meant to say that since you're not a bona fide Jewess, you are a shifcha. So he felt that halachically you don't have to go to the mikveh. So no, you can say the Shema without the mikveh. Yeah. So she told him, if I'm a behema, then having a relation with me is your chayv skila. She got him. She got the better of him. Look at him. So I'm like, don't you know? Didn't you hear behema that if you have a relation with a behema, shu niskal? She never had daf lametes that called shechet behema meishumas, and she got him, and he had no response to that, and they didn't have a relation. So therefore, they were not mevatel the Tkonas Ezra in this man of Rabbi ben Levi because they saw how this. So what the Gemara is really saying. So let's go back. We learned in the last year, not like the Babli says. In the Babli it says that the reason why Ezra made a takana was in order to diminish the excess marital relations in a couple. That's what the Babli says. The Yerushalmi never makes such a statement. The Yerushalmi says what we learned until now is that they didn't want for people to be both having a relation and then they're going to eat right away. And since when we have to eat, you have to make a bracha prior. And Takanas Ezra's, you can't take God's name prior going to the mikvah. So it prevented two acts of involvement in Gashmias. You have to take a break between one and the other. He didn't want to have a double Gashmias thing. That's what Ezra wanted. Now we're learning another thing, that Ezra somehow foresaw, whether it was consciously or whether it was an outcome, is that Tfilas Ezra is going to stop Jewish people from sinning. This is not having marital relations with wife. This is these two stories. Let's go back. Yeah. And the Babli people learning a reason. We're going to get to that at the end. That they were mavatalit, and the question is if they were mavatalit. Only one Tana holds they were mavatalit, and the kasha there is that how can a bezin be mavatal divrei chaveri? It has to be gadol minyan. We didn't have a bezin that was gadol from Ezra. Ezra was 120 ansheknes hagdola mehem chacham mehem neviim. So that the answer was that lachatchila was not nespashit, and therefore they were able to mavatal it. We're not there yet. One second. Now, Amar Rab Chia bar Va. We already mentioned before that va l'cha'ira. I'm not repeating my own title, but the va is really vez hey, which is interchangeable like velvel. Velvel is vez ayin. It's the same thing. And ba is abba. And abba was the most common name. So just to know, so l'chayra Rab Chia bar Va is Rab Chia bar Abba. Who actually said this was Reb Chaim Kanievsky a couple of daf ago. He made the flow work better. Okay, so Amr Chia bar Va, that is skino The kol atzmon. Oh, another reason. Kol atzmon lo iskinos atfilas zois elo mepnei Talmud. It's not. The real reason was because Ezra felt, and the Chachamim with him, that Tfilas Ezra will. The upside is people are going to learn more Torah. Without Tfilas Ezra, there's going to be bittul Torah. Why? Because without Tfilas Ezra, if a man can have a married relation, then go learn Torah, a man is going to say, man is going to want to be with his wife. He says, okay, I'll go have a relation with my wife. And afterwards, people learned that night. But what happens? After he has a relation with his wife, he gets tired, he goes to sleep. They didn't want for that to happen. There you go. Now, what was the solution? Not don't have a relation. Again, the solution was they had a relation. Tila says that they're not. No one wants a relation. Mikvah. Once you go to the mikvah, you're not going to sleep. The mikvahs were cold. Again, I'm not learning the way the art scroll learns. Means the way it sounds again to the Yerushalmi. Have a marital relation. It's a mitzvah. In other words, then afterwards go to the mikvah and you're going to be wide awake and you're not going to go to sleep. Okay.
Wait, what about the women and the freezing and being barren?
Yeah. The Gemara said only in the Galil. So go move over there. Go move to Tiberia. It's like Miami. Go move to Echvez. Go move to the Yamamela. You're not going to be freezing. You live in the Galil, you have to be Russian. And the Russians, the Russians warm up the water. The other way around. Oh, that's a good word. Says the Gemara, Taman Amrina. Oh, now this is amazing. Over there in Bavel, see, in Bavel, they took this more to an extreme. They said, Afilu l'shmai divrei Torah also. Now, guys, this is so important. We learned in the Mishnah, Haman, over there, Darton. They don't even say over there. Yened, the others. So over there they say like this, guys. Let's remember that we learned two shiurim ago about Shemei Kohen. Don't confuse Hirur to Shemei Kohen. Shemei Kohen means that when you're talking and I'm listening, I'm talking it. That was that whole sugya, which is worse. If a Balkedi can't walk to the Torah, Hirur is like a notch down. Hirur means I'm not listening to anyone. None of the words are being spoken, not by me, not by you. I'm just thinking the words. And that was our whole Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that if the Zman Krishma is coming and going, be mahared, whether it's the Shema, the Bircha, be mahared. Over there, they hold that harer, listening up. Implying that over here, you're meaning in Yerushalmi, which mainly means the north of Israel, we held that listening is not as bad as talking. And therefore, just like the Mishnah gave certain atadim for you to go ahead and be maharer, you can listen also. Point is, if someone is giving a shir Torah and the person didn't go to the mikveh, can they listen to the shir? So over there they held afilu l'shmai divrei Torah also. And what would be their rationale? The rationale is great because where did we find this old tefillah says? What's the source of the Torah? Actually, we're having another source, and Rabbi Chaim just mentioned it. That prior to giving of the Torah, God says, "Al tikshom isha shleishis yamim." And why did we have to keep separated from our wives for 3 days? It's because since everyone was going to be by mountain Torah, including the women, the men can have a relation and go to the mikvah and they're good. The women, since they have zera in their bodies and halachically it's considered viable for the next 72 hours, 3 days, so they have to have a pre-shav of 72 hours. If listening to the Torah is only like hirur, if listening is not mamish like talking, let them go to Har Sinai and listen. Now, really, it's not so pashut because what really happened there was Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Yishmael. What was Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Yishmael machlokes? Whether we said al hein hein ba'al lav lav, or whether we said al hein hein ba'al lav hein. But there was a response. We learned in the Yerushalmi that responding is mamish saying verbatim. But we're ignoring all that over here because we're quoting what they hold in the Babli. In the Babli, they don't have any of that. Now let's read it inside. Another stam lahoyer. you have Titus. Titus was the Russia that destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. Nevertheless, obviously, Titus wasn't only his name. Titus was a Roman name. And this is not the only time, but we have times that we see that Tanoim and Amoraim and Rishonim, they have non-Jewish names. And that goes into the whole other topic of Shaloishanu as Malbusham, Lashoinam, and Lashoinam. What are the three? The language, the garment, and their names.
The Shmon.
Very good. So Rashi writes that the malbush that we're not allowed to dress is not the malbush of the seculars. It's malbush which is worn l'shem avodah zarah. And therefore, many halakhic authority holds a yid cannot wear the collar or what the other idol worshippers wear. And the same thing is in the names. So to have a name Christian, that would be awesome. But to have a name Morris, Keminig Yisrael, is muted. And one of the rayas they bring is from here, Titus. Okay. And then you can argue that his father wasn't Tana, still he's brought down over there on Amoida. In the name of Rabbi B'Shem Rabbi Loza. That Kid Chila, I'll tell you where they had the sword. Just like in the mountain Torah, like we all began. When it says, and if you're going to say again that the listening is only like Hirud, if listening is not like Dibur, then why did they have to go to the mikvah? We only heard the words of Torah. God was the speaker. We were only the listeners. Is an ayah that Shemeh Kohen Mamish. So even if you can have a heter to be Maharer, Hidur is also a problem. And by the way, David, you mentioned, that's the whole sugya in Brachas. Hidur Kedibur Dami, Hidur Laf Kedibur Dami is the sugya the Gemara has over there in Bavli after the submission. Very good. So we said good. Now let's go right. So says Abrais. Now you should know that the whole issue of Ezra was not if someone is Tamei, not even if someone became Tamei because something left their bodies. It's called Tumah HaYotzei Megufay. It's only for the act of cohabitation. It's only for a Balket. Azovin, Vizavois, Nidois, Viyoldois, Choyim Batlayim, they can read and they can learn Medrash and they can learn Halachas, which is Mishnayos. Okay, Medrash means what we call Gemara. Medrash means to see how a halacha is sourced in the Torah. That's what medrash means. I know today people say the word midrash and they make up a story. No, that's called agadat. Medrash is the link between what God said and bushtatus. My tam of the Yerushalmi. My tam doesn't mean what's the reason. It means where does it say? Halachas means mishnais, just the rules. Agadas is what we call pnimius haTorah. Agadas is the agadat. Okay. So they're allowed to do everything. Now a balkari. Now we're going to listen to this. We're going to this Tana holds Asir Bekulan. But hold on. Remember what we learned? We just quoted the Rab Chanina, what we had in the Aflamet Chesam base. Rab Abba, Bar Acha, in the name of Rebbe, guys, that's our Rebbe, Rabbeinu HaKadosh. He holds that Lechatchila, even when they made the Takanas Ezra, it was not against learning halachas. Oh, Shoina halachas, ve'eina Shoina hagadis. How great is that? That's exactly the way we learned the pshat of Rab Chanina when he went early in the morning. He says before davening, they were only chazadik halachas. They didn't have to go to the mikveh then. Okay? Yeah, very interesting. And we'll see another insight into the issue over here. What does he say over here? The Pnei Moshe. It's about being ma'ayin. If you don't have to be ma'ayin, then no problem. And indeed, Tana, we learned Tana in the name of Rabbi Yossi. Shoyne hilchas regilos. Oh, Mishnah is 1 second. If you are familiar with the Mishnah, you know it already. You're just reviewing it. That you can do. But if you're starting to stretch out the Mishnah, you're starting to learn pshat in the Mishnah. No, be ma'ayin. Don't even do that. Davening is saying God's name. That's the worst. That's the worst. Learning doesn't evoke God's name. You'll see. Now the Gemara says, "Is the boy meimar that you didn't quote Rabbi Yossi correct?" You know what Rabbi Yossi says? Rabbi Yossi is moida like Rabbi. Any type of Mishnah is okay. Becoming more lenient and more lenient. The issue is taking God's name. That's the only issue. So Rabbi Yossi is the most lenient opinion. Now the Gemara says, now that we mentioned, you already see learning Torah. Could you not? That's not so simple. Yeah, the first Braisa says you can't learn anything. Now we're learning this, that, not. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Zeida, Boi, Kuma Rabbi Yasa, Rabbi Zeida asked for Rabbi Yossi. Leis Rebbe, Rabbi meant my teacher. When he said Rabbi, Rabbi Zira was talking to Rabbi Yasa. Rabbi means Rabbi Yasa. That Leis Rabbi Pasha Bi Im Rabbi Bun doesn't. Rabbi learned with me and my chavrusa Rabbi Bun. So Rabbi Zayn and Abun, they were chavrusas. Their teacher was Rabbi Yasa. You learn with us Torah every single night. Now you have one teacher and two students. They were all married. They learned every night before dawn. At night doesn't mean they learned before dawn. They woke up early and they learned. In other words, hold on. If there would be an issue of a Balkari learning Torah, it's not shaykh that we're always learning Torah. You never asked. You never went to the mikveh. We never went to the mikveh. Is it good? So he said, yeah, I know that. It's okay. In other words, he held, like we learned above, that learning Torah, actually learning any part of Torah. The only issue was he followed Rabbi Yossi. That what? In the second version, the only thing you can't do is you can't take God's name. So you can't say the Shema, you can't say the Shemona Esrei, but in learning Torah, you got no problem. Weiter. Rab Chia bar Abba Pshit im Rab Nechemya b'rei Pirkei B'layla. Reb Abba learned with Rab Nechemya, his son, his Pedek, his quota. B'hai Tzafra Havomad. And then when it got light, he told his son, was learning Torah, they would learn. Man de Islay Avida Yezel Yavde. Whoever has an Avida, which means whoever did the deed, whoever had an act of cohabitation, now before davening, they have to go to the mikvah. Now they should go. Now is the time to go to the mikvah. Okay, now we're going to see in a moment. We're going to see soon in the Gemara that there was a sakana. The Maraf full, but he's quoting what we have in the Gemara. If you look inside the Maraf full, the second wide line, at the end of the second wide line going further, he writes that there was a certain sakana to go at night. It was dark. Since you find Tanoim that say that learning Torah is okay, so they were already lenient. They held the Torah you can learn. But davening, for davening, you're saying God's name, now you have to go to the mikvah. And let's go back. A person got up to read from the Torah. And when he came to an askara, no, he was following Rabbi Yossi. He was reading Torah, but it was something that we recorded the verse, and really it's the name of God, so he didn't want to say the name of God. Name of a place. Now we're recording this shita. That's Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira is the only shita that one he holds that they nullified Takana says. Okay. And as we see from the Yerushalmi found that only to be a psadas yachid. The Bible really goes by him. No, don't avoid saying God's name. Sach picha v'ya'iru devarach. Say, open up your mouth and let your word shine forth. Because she'eng divrei Torah mekabelin tuma. This is the shita that holds that they were mevatel. Takanas Ezra, as we already spoke out, how can you invatel Takanas Ezra? Because even though when a Sanhedrin makes a takana, if it's not nispashet b'roiv kol Yisrael, it never really takes hold. That gives us, it doesn't mean that it goes away by itself. It's the same thing we had over there in Avodah Zarah when it came, I think, to Shemanakum. It doesn't go away by itself, or to Pasakum, but it allows the next phase then to be nullified. Okay. I want you to know that the Rosh, I don't know at what point, when he was still a Bacher, the Rebbe told him these words. How great is that? Our Rosh Hashiva, to the Ezra, Shachat Shlita, Psach Picha v'Ya'iru Devarecha. That's a big statement. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yaakov Baracha. You should know, V'nohagen Tamon, that over there in Bavel, they're lenient. Again, implying Velvel that here in Eretz Yisrael they were not lenient. They kept Tfilah says they were Siddish people. Over there, they were lenient. Now, once we're mentioning what they did over there, we're mentioning three leniencies. In other words, how the Oilam followed Das Yachid and three dinim, and we'll go through them quickly. Number one, they followed like Rabbi Eloi Bereishis Hagez. Okay, we'll see soon in a moment what that is. Reish Hagez is that you have to give from the first shearings. There's a minimum amount of animals that you have to have. But when you share it, you have to give it to the coin. How much do you have to give to a coin? We just learned this in the Rabbanan 1/60th. Is it noyeg everywhere? Only Rabbi Eloi held that it's only noyeg be'eretz Yisrael, not in Chutz La'aretz. And in Babel, they followed his, he held, we're not, I don't have to give over here. The next is Rabbi Yoshe B'Klei HaKerem, who was very lenient. Well, the Gemara is going to say his leniency. And also, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseder Babali Keroin, who he was the only one that held that we were mevatel tfilas Ezra. The Gemara speaks out that Kirabi lo yibereishas hageiz, the Tani Rabbi lo oimer ein reishas hageiz elabaretz. So therefore, they allowed themselves not to give it. I want you to know that also the matanos that people don't give b'chutz la'aretz. From every animal that you shech, domesticated animal, you have to give certain parts to our kohen. Why don't we give it here? It's also Rabbi Loi. So we're lenient, which is unusual because normally you have to follow Das Rabba. The next is Rabbi Yosha b'kalayim detani Rabbi Yosha oimer lo oilam enachayev acha yizrachitos erevachat m'poelosiot. That there's a special isur in planting together with grapes other seeds, and Rabbi Yosha limits the problem. You know when you can't midoiraisa plant with grapes, not a seed and a grape. It has to be two other and a grape seed in one throw of your hand. Means if you have a chita and a so'ira, doesn't have to be dafka. It can be a spelt and rye, but it's two other seeds and grape. Only then are you violating midoi raisa climb. And if it wasn't that, the midoi raisa there's no climb. It's a big leniency. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseder Babali Keroin that Rabbi Yehuda oimer ein divrei Torah mekabel tuma. There they are lenient in all three. That means that here in Eretz Yisrael, Machta Eretz Yisrael, we gotta still keep Tfilas Ezra. Let's go back there.
Rabbi, can I ask you a quick question?
One second. David is asking something. No, we halacha paskins, we follow in this case, like the Bavli, that we hold that because they were mevatel Tfilas Ezra, he said, Ein divrei Torah mekabel tuma. Yes, Danny.
So we are mevatel Tfilas Ezra, or what Takanas Ezra.
Yeah.
Which is what, but we still, there's a minute to go to the mikveh in the mornings, right?
That's because you see that Yerushalmi doesn't agree with that. Yerushalmi
What about women? I never heard of a woman wake up in the morning, go to the mikveh so she could learn Torah, she could daven. Well, why don't
since Danny never heard of a woman, is araya that what? You don't know enough women. In other words, there was a time that women, they davened every day. Yeah.
Have you ever heard that a mikveh is open for women to go in the morning?
You marry a fruma woman that's living somewhere in Shomron, you never know. Don't laugh. You mean in the I don't know.
They go to the beach.
They don't go to the beach. They went on Mesiras Nefesh. They lost their capacity of having kids to be inspired because they wanted to daven. How beautiful. Rabbi Yossi bar Chalafta. He was traveling. Istama means an alley. He was traveling on an alley at night, and the donkey driver was walking behind him. When they came near a large ditch of water, the donkey driver told Rabbi Yossi, that man, meaning me, I got to go to the mikvah. In other words, he was a balkeri. He was the taxi driver. He says, Balta Shachlis, I got to go to the mikvah. So Rabbi Yossi told him, Loi Tisaki Nafshach. He felt at that ditch at night in the alley, like we quoted before from the Marav Fulda, that there was a sakonim. If you have an open body of water out there, there's a danger. So Amalei, now you have to understand something, that there's a place to be stringent. But if a tzaddik tells you, don't do something, don't be frumer than the Rebbe. So Amalei, this donkey driver told Rabbi Yossi, one second. Rebbe, it's not that I'm a balkeri. Gamzeh. Problem was I had a relation from a married woman who was an Ida. And he held that going to the mikvah would help him. Al derech we had before, this man who was committing adultery with an Eshes Shish had this kavana that if you go to the mikvah, it's somehow going to make it better for him. I got to clean myself from all of these avedas. So therefore, maybe I should go. And Amalei Rabbi Yossi tells him, no. Don't endanger yourself. Which is American. In other words, not that you are such a big sinner, go die. No, go to tshuva, but not doing tshuva doesn't mean to die. But keeping the the guy was insisting, but Rebbe, I gotta go to the mikvah. He wasn't listening to Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yossi told him, Kevin likes these Gemaras, go down and don't come back up. Gesundheit. And you know what happened? The Rebbe gesagt, the Rebbe said, and then it happened. Another story. Rabbi Yossi ben Yossi, he was a Sfardi. Rabbi Yossi ben Yossi. Or the tragedy which can happen, that his father passed away before he was born. But okay, Rabbi Yossi ben Yossi, Hava Asi be'ilfa, and Aleph, he was going on a ship, and Chama, he saw Chad Kitar Garme Bechavla Mechus of Iskay. Think about it. When you're going on the big ships, the ships then was like a big rowboat. You needed to go to the mikvah. So the problem is you jump into the water from your rowboat. So he tied a rope. He's going to lower himself in the water, and like this, he won't lose the ship. Rabbi Yossi tells him that don't put yourself into danger. So he tells Rabbi Yossi, hold on, I gotta eat. Oh, to eat, it's like a given. If I have to eat, I have to make a bracha. I can't make a bracha. I have to eat. So so he told him, Achil, eat, okay. I have to drink. Amalei say. Even the mitmoin limeina. Amalei, when they reach the port, now he tells him, Tamon, lo yisharisolach. Elvigans got the nafsha. Don't think that I told you to be lenient because I subscribe like over there in Bubble that bottled tefillah Ezra. I don't hold like that. I only told you not to go to the mikvah because there was a danger. But over here, now that we are in the port, now that there's no danger, you can't taste anything until you go to the mikvah. You know, the Gemara is concluding to make a point that here in Eretz Yisrael, the Taka were more chamur when it came to tefillah Ezra. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yanai, this is going on the fact that we still have to go to tefillah Ezra. It was not buckle. We don't follow Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseida. Nevertheless, Shamati shemekilim umachmirim. And you should know v'chol machmir ba marach yomim b'toiva. Marach yomim b'toiva is the hayom yom. Arichas yomim, but nish poirish yom. Arichas yomim, good years. Now, what does it mean that they were lenient and they were machmir? Mekelba means that they allowed people to lirchitz b'mayim she'uvim, and that's something we learned 2 days ago. And to make it clear, mayim the Tisha Kabin. Let me say it like this: there's two things. Either Tisha Kabin was only good for tefillah says it's not good for the other tumas, which is good. And then we learned another shita, right? That maybe you can even go inside a water, even though the memsa is mayim she'uvim, which is also something that people do today. Say men can go to a swimming pool. It's mayim she'uvim. It doesn't matter. You know, we can be made. You can be makel. Go to the mikvah. You can be makel. Some people were machmir litpo b'mayim chai. The literal meaning of mayim chai means to go to spring water. Now, it's very difficult to say that there were people in Eretz Yisrael that were chomer to go mayim chaim. I don't know why it's difficult, but that Pnei Moshe, at least the Charedim says, I'm sorry, lav dafka. Mayim chaim doesn't mean mayim chaim. It means not mayim she'uvim. So some people, they said, no. Everyone went to the mikveh there. Some people were makel. Some people were machmer. Some people used the Tisha Kabbat. They went to a shower. Some people, or they went to mayim she'uvim. Some people says, I'm going to a same mikveh that a nida needs. And on that, we conclude that whoever is going to be machmir will be marach yomim b'toivam. David, not it sounding, that's exactly what we're learning. So we ultimately conclude this sugya that in the Yerushalmi we paskin like really ben Seder, and in the Babli doesn't paskin like that way at all. The Yerushalmi does not. If you're going to follow the Yerushalmi, no, especially now that you have a shower, wake up in the morning, at least go take a shower. Let's at least do that. Let's go back. Okay, next guy. We have 10 minutes. We're going to chaparei. Now we're still behemshach to the sugya of Abalkeri. The Mishnah has two dinim. Din number one: Choya oimed b'tefillah. Person is davening Shemona Esrei, and v'niskashu Balkeri, and he remembers he's a Balkeri, and he can't daven. Tonish daven. So what should you do? He forgot. Well, you're still young. Wait. Well, Mr. Shevet, 50, 60 years, we'll start to forget those gators. So now
halacha is not according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira.
Okay, we meaning, let's go with the presumption that we paskin like the Babli over the Yerushalmi. So yeah, we paskin that way. We meaning we people in Golos, but now we're getting connected to the Avira of Yerushalayim. There's no doubt when Mashiach will come, they're going to readjust all these things. We're going back. Yerushalmi, limud Yerushalmi is going to be the main limud with Mashiach. You'll see.
Okay, so this halacha is saying that Yitaka need the mikvah in order to learn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless there's a sakana. But I'm saying even in the Yerushalmi, they were saying that maybe learning Mishnayos is okay. Learning Daf HaYomi is okay. Not Be'iyun. Be'iyun, it's a problem. Chassidus is a problem. We're learning different things. We're learning different approaches. I mean, even in the Bavli, before the Yehuda Ben Beseda, we're learning leniencies. The most problematic is saying Birchas HaShachar. You got yourself a problem. Like I was just wondering how they have to make Birchas HaTorah. So what did it even help him? He told his Talmidim, Rab Chanina, don't go to the mikvah, come learn. How would they go learn? So the answer is that there's a machlekes in Shulchan Aruch that they were up the whole night, and according to some opinions, if you have the whole night, okay, let's go back. So number one, Yemin Lishman Estei and Minister Shubal Keri Lo Yafsik Eli Yekatzer. Guys, look inside the Pnei Moshe. Don't stop the Shemona Estei. You know what Mekatzer means? That every single bracha make shorter. How do you make every single bracha shorter? You only open up with the bracha and you make the chasim. So you make the whole Shemona Esrei brief. Okay, next. Now next is this is the middle of Shemona Esrei. And it's private Shemona Esrei, yeah. Now, a person is going into the mikvah. Now we learned before, machlekes tanoim, until when can you say the Shema? It was Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. If someone can check, I forgot the names. Whoever, it was two Tanoim. And even though we paskin, I think it was Rabbi Yeshua that so if the end of the third hour, nevertheless, there is an need to say with Netzacham. And it's not that our Mishnah is making a stam Mishnah that with Netzacham. The Charedim points out. Even though you could say it after Netzacham, the inyan of saying Shema with Netzacham is so chashuv that number one, if you're in the mikvah and you can get out and you can get dressed before Netzachama, Avada, do that. But if you don't have enough time to get properly dressed, and you are, as they point out over here, you're not in clear water. You are in murky waters. Murky waters doesn't allow you to say the Shemona Esrei because you're naked. But it allows you to say the Shema because your erva is physically covered from your heart. Physically, because it's murky. For davening, it says hikoin likras Hashem aleikecha. Davening is more chama. Davening Shemona Esrei, and we learned smichus gula letfila. That will be the Charedim points out another chiddush that even though we're telling this person if you can't say the Shema with nates, even though you can say it later, say it in the mikveh when you are on guard, as long as the waters are murky, which means that you're not going to be yisrael gula letfila zol zayin. That's how important it is to daven v'sikin. Look at Ido. That's why he's davening with v'sikin. It's better than the minyan. V'imlav. Which is a big chiddush. Now, just another detail. It says the Mishnah, you can't have bad waters, which is bad smelling waters. Mishnah was, the Mishnah always points out, Mishnah was waters that were used to sow flax. It had a unique type of smell. Maybe some people became habituated with it. It didn't smell like garbage. Still, it's not good. That's not good. But what happens if that's all the waters that you have? So you have to dilute it with water. In other words, how much clean water? It has to be not if it's going to be so much clean water that it's going to become transparent. You cannot say the Shema in the water. It's enough water that it's mevatel the bad smell. And one of the upsides of COVID-19 is that maybe these didn't change. Everything smells great. Everything smells the same. Now the final comes to the third, and then the Mishnah is, so now that we spoke about the problem of davening when something bad smells bad, the kama yarchik hen, how far must you distance yourself from these bad smelling waters or from tzoya? Arba ames. And as we're going to get into the sugya, reminds us the charedim, don't think dalad ames means across the board. No. There's two separate dinim. Says the charedim at the end of the Mishnah. If the source of foul-smelling waters, David, meraglayim, excrement, is either to your side or behind you, then you're good with daladamas. But if it's in front of you, that means you can see it in front of you. Daladamas is not enough. We're going to learn just these are the basic then. I'll read it inside. We have this in Brachas Daf Chavav, and we'll have this soon in the Yerushalmi. Let's chaparan as much as we could. Says the Mishnah. Says the Gemara. Yeah, let's go.
The time should cover himself.
Did he have to say brachas after he went to the, or is it assumed that he already made brachas before?
The kasha. He said brachas way before.
If you don't have to do it, it's not like these months. You didn't say brachas. You say Shema, and if you're going to say brachas, this.
Okay, David, good question. The David is asking if a person has like 2 minutes or 1 minute before Seis Man Kriya Shema. Before you say Shema, you have to say Birchas HaTorah. According to some opinions, it's a doiraisa. If you're going to say Birchas HaTorah, you're going to lose the opportunity to say Shema. What should you do? Wake up earlier. That's the best answer. Right. Says the Gemara that Masnisa, our Mishnah. Here we go. Fakir David, you're speaking about the first thing in the Mishnah was your middle of Shemona Esrei, and you chapu on balkedi. So when does the Mishnah speak about that? What? Don't stop. Only be makatzer, the first, the opening, and Baruch Atah Hashem. That's only if you're davening in public. David, not davening in public, the Bal Tefillah. You're davening in public. But if you're davening on your own, then you have to stop. Then you have to stop and go to the mikvah. I think it's to give you. The Charedim says not to be ashamed. So I'm davening in mitten the shul, and in the middle of Shemona Esrei, I walk out. Today, it's nothing to be ashamed. Everyone is walking out. Then, what's tutzach though? A person like Vlad was asking, what do you mean he forgot? The whole thing, not ashamed. A married man has nothing to be ashamed. But what do you mean you forgot? Shame on you. You forgot to go to the mikvah. So for the shame, they allowed you to say it. Be makatzer. If you were private, go stop middle. Now this follows Rab Meir, who holds, like we learned before, that a balkedi may not vocalize. However, that Biram, according to Rabbi Yehuda, in the previous Mishnah, that holds that what? That even the brachas, not only the Oyraisa, but even the brachas can be vocalized. Very good. Don't forget, Shemona Esrei is the Rabbanan, afilu bein l'bein atzmai. Then the Mishnah goes, even if you're davening on your own, there's no shame involved. No, we're not saying that you should begin, but if you already began davening Shemona Esrei, also ein a mafsik. Now the Gemara adds another detail. When? Ein a mafsik. Because only b'she'ein l'mayim litval. Avol yesh l'mayim litval. Rabbi Yehuda Moide, that he has to be mafsik, which is a big cloud on Amamish. We're going back to the Mishnah. When we learned above that Rabbi Yehuda holds the way we learned in Yerushalmi, that Tanakama holds the Doiraisa you can vocalize. The Rabbanans you have to be mahara. Rabbi Yehuda says Bein Yerushalmi doesn't matter. All of that is when there's no B'neida. Like we learned before, it was Seitzman Kriya Shema, or over here there's no Mayim. Or we learned before Psabraisa, you're choila, you can't go to the mine, you can't go to the water. But if there is a mikvah, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, if there's no shame involved, then you should stop in the middle of Shemona Esrei and go to the mikvah. But Kula Alma, the whole thing of the Mishnah is that Kavod Abriyas, Takadus Atakonas Ezra, and you can't take God's name. If a person is going to stop, the truth is, I made a joke before. If a person is in the middle of Shemona Esrei until today, it's beautiful. No Yid is going to walk out of the middle of Shemona Esrei. It doesn't exist. And there's taka shame. So for that, if there's going to be a shame, then the Mishnah says, don't be mafsik. You have to honor tefillahs. You have to honor Ezra. Takonas Ezra. So be mekatzer. Be mekatzer.
But does that do with the person being ashamed, or not of sneers, people announcing where they're holding?
No. I think he says, no. Yargishu means other people will realize that he's a balkedi who forgot to go to the mikveh, and they'll get ashamed from them. If there's no one else there, then you stop middle guys. We finished on time.
Question: yes. If he's in a clear water mikveh, can he just cover up the privates and say Shema?
That's what we are learning. If he doesn't, that's what the Mishnah said. Kevan. Yes, if he's in the mikveh, go under the water, and if you're davening with nates, if you're saying the Shema with nates. It's amazing. Then cover yourself with the water if the water is dirty. It has to be dirty and not that smelly.
No, I was saying if the water is clear, can you just use your hands and cover the privates?
You cannot use your hands. Very good. I'm sorry. You cannot use your hands. The waters themselves have to be, that's for a man. For a woman, the Mishnah says a woman who